Zlurpcast!
Merry Christmas a couple of weeks ago. If we would have timed this better, we could have had a proper Christmas episode. But you know what? People still celebrating. All these people traveling, right? More traveling this year, or maybe it's less. I don't know, depending on where you fall on things. Welcome to Zlurpcast TV. I'm Jonny P. Next to me, I don't want to say to which way, but orthogonally from me is Brian Xtreme Mitchell. And up there, look at those guys. I see Biran and I see Valdric and I see one of you is not wearing underpants. Yeah.
I am wearing
smell it from here. I know. It's tangy. So this episode, we're going to talk about over the years, Christmas gifts. And I don't know where it's going to go. I know for me, it's mostly going to be kid stuff and toys, but it might not be for the rest of the crew. Fun Christmas gifts. They can be other gifts too, because you know what? The past is a blur. Xtreme now knows. He's in his 40s now. We don't remember what the fuck happened a week ago, let alone years ago. I can't tell you if I got this toy in 84 or 89. Now, as a kid, huge difference in those 2 years. But now it's all the same. That's what we're going to talk about, though. Before we get any further, you probably have watched other videos of ours. So thank you for doing that. Make sure you subscribe, ring the bell so you get notified. And we do contests from time to time. Is that a word? Is that a phrase? From time to time? Sounds weird to me when I say that. I had a teacher who always would say, and so on and so forth. And she would say that like every fucking sentence.
Like it was her thing?
Yeah, I couldn't unhear it. And blah, 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 and so on and so forth. Like if you have to say it, just say and so on. It was unbelievable. So now I think about those crutch phrases when I say them. This was like years ago too. So with Zlurpcast, we have videos that review games, and we have other gaming-related topics. Sometimes they're just fun ones. You know, what member of the A-team would we be? Biran is going to be Murdoch, I believe.
Was that who he said?
You wanted to be B.A. Baracus.
I did.
We were like, no.
We all wanted to be B.A. Baracus.
Right. Well, none of us are.
Yeah.
You know, we have 3 of the A-team members, and then whoever the guest star is. That's what. None of us got to be B.A. Spoiler on that one.
I think
So,
Xtreme was
like
Cheryl
tell
Teague's
your
guest
friends-
star.
Who's the guest star?
Cheryl Teague's.
Okay. So I think without further ado, I'd like to do this instead of having a person talk about their favorite Christmas gifts back in the day or even modern day, whatever. I'd rather kind of go somewhat chronologically so we all get to chime in as things went in. That way it's not 40K style, or Blood Bowl. Let me know when it's my turn.
So we're going all the way back. Like I got
the
frankincense and myrrh on my first birthday, and my name is Jesus.
That's a good one. I think cash value on myrrh is going really like a
Well, they use them in cell phones and stuff, I think.
If it's on card, is it mint on card? Then it's doing well.
It's graded. It's graded, and it's slabbed in acrylic.
So, anyone here have any memorable Christmas gifts from the decade of the 70s? Let's start there.
The only thing I remember getting is slot car tracks from back then.
Yeah.
And the
Matchbox,
fondest
Hot Wheels.
memory is setting it up, and it made your house smell like a bumper car track.
Yeah. So, are you
It
talking
had
about
an
the orange
ozone-y
tracks?
smell to it, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
we had the triggers and
What I loved about those is, so I had 2 older brothers that had toys, you know, obviously before I did. So I would see, you know, the previous crop of toys. And those Hot Wheels tracks were great because if I was acting up, you know, my mom would use it as a
no, not the Hot Wheels like molded plastic. These are electrically powered race cars that have a little needle in them, and it goes in the track.
Oh, like so you build the track.
Yeah.
Slot
Those are
cars.
great.
We call them slot cars. I don't know if there's an official term for them.
Yeah, they weren't called RC because that's different.
No.
Slot cars.
Yeah, slot cars, yeah.
I guess it was called slot. I don't remember that term, but you're right. It's probably what it was. I remember as a kid, I don't know why I thought this was cool. but to not have a body on my car, just have like the engine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
See the guts.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I thought that was cooler than like a fucking GTO body. Like that should be way cooler. But I was like, no. Like I wanted to look broken. I don't know. Maybe I wanted to be a demolition derby driver. I don't know, but I wanted it to be like look shittier. I don't know why.
Maybe you had a thing for post-apocalyptic stuff, and you thought that
I
looked
think
cool.
I did early on. I mean, we talked the other day about when did the Mad Max movies come out. So it was about the same time we were all prepping for, well, I better get my slot car skill set down now because in a year or two, you might need that. What you guys have? Did you have like a custom set, or did you just kind of make your own cars?
I think it came with 2 cars. It was the standard truck. I think it was ordered out of Sears or JCPenney catalog.
Tyco was the brand, I believe. And,
Yeah. I remember like it was always a few months before Christmas is when the JCPenney and Sears winter
Oh God, that was a great day when that catalog came.
My brother and I would go through it, and each page we'd get to pick one toy if we had one, and we even had to do the doll section. And I'd pick a toy, and my brother called me gay and punched me in the arm. Yeah, those good times.
That's still to this day. That's still going on, I believe, right?
Yeah. I have to fly out to California, and we do it.
Yeah, it's worth it.
But I remember in the late 70s when all the Star Wars toys were out, those pages in the JCPenney and Sears catalog were always...
That was like our glimpse of the new stuff. We had no idea until we saw that catalog.
Exactly.
So, this is, I'm glad we're talking about the timeliness of this. So when Biran, can I ask, Biran, what year were you born in?
73.
And Mike, what were you?
68.
Okay. So there's still a little bit of a gap there, but I was born in 77. By the time I wanted to get like cool toys, Star Wars was over.
Yep.
It was done. Like Return of the Jedi didn't have, you guys probably know better than me, but it didn't have the staying power that I noticed because it was all the new crop of, and if you watch those documentaries, like The Toys That Made Us, you see this, that was just the think tank of these guys, just like, we got to just churn them out now. So everything I had was after that. Sure, I watched the movies, but from a toy and gift perspective, it was nothing Star Wars.
They didn't for me, it was superseded by G.I. Joes because they had so much more articulation and accessories.
Yeah.
Whereas G.I. Joe did not change the Kenner figures, didn't change the basic mechanics all the way through the run.
Yeah.
No.
I remember, like my brother Dean would have the Darth Vader case, right?
Yep.
And
yep,
so
I had that.
you had Star Wars figures in there. And so I would look at them and be like, oh, this is cool. And then they're just this because like you said, and then immediately when I was the age that I wanted action figures, it became G.I. Joe. And it's right off the bat, it was just way cooler. Again, I think it'd be different. If I was a few years older, I probably would have gotten all of that stuff. But it just from a timing perspective, it was all about G.I. Joe. So for you guys, Biran and Mike, so you early on, slot cars, probably Tyco, I remember was the thing. I think Tyco also had like their own Lego blocks. Like then they have their version of Legos that were like
they were
little off.
It's called Tenti. It was from Japan, and they were like Legos, but they had pins as opposed to the circles, and the little connecting thing had a little hole in the middle. So,
well, later on, Tyco had blocks that were compatible with Lego.
Yeah,
and the way they stayed in business. Yeah, the way they stayed in business was by making military kits.
Yes,
because Lego would never make guns.
That's right. Yep.
Tyco had all the guns.
Interesting. That's smart. So you go from the slot car set. By the way, I think I had a Dukes of Hazzard slot car set.
I think they had licensed ones. Yeah, they had a Starsky and Hutch, I think, and
yeah, figure eights, and you had a couple of cop cars. You had the General Lee. I think we might have Daisy's Jeep in there as well. And yeah, that was pretty fun. Because that was like my favorite show as a kid. And not only did I have the slot car Dukes of Hazzard, but also it was a wind-up car, and then it crashes into a barn. So basically you set up this barn, and then it fucking crashes in the doors, and that's the game. That's the toy, that's the game.
We were simple people back then.
Yeah,
Remember the Evel Knievel one where you had the thing that would wind up, and then you'd let it loose?
Yeah.
There was the ones, the cars that had the stick that you'd pull.
Yeah, you'd pull, and and there was a He-Man figure that had that Dragstar or Dragster. His belly was a wheel, and you had a pull strip that would
That
start it
sounds
running.
really familiar. Yeah.
He was also
Evil
muscle bound and super gay, but like
Evil Knievel, alive or dead?
he's dead.
He died. Yeah, he died a few years ago.
Not from a stunt. I think he just died, right?
Yeah.
What? Oh, I mean, still sad, but you'd expect him to go out in style.
Yeah.
I remember watching the Snake Canyon jump live on TV and being so unimpressed.
Yeah, because it just went
So excited. Yeah, it did nothing. And
it went about
So-
10 feet over the canyon and then fell.
yeah.
Was it the norm to have him because it's live? And I know
Yeah.
they've done a little bit of that stuff with the guy that walks on the tightrope now, right?
Yeah, every once in a while, but it was like every month there was a new Evil Knievel stunt going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it? I mean, did you ever think we're gonna watch it because he might die?
Yes, that's what I was thinking the entire time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I do remember Dean had the toy, the wind up. It was a big
Yep.
cycle. So I
Yeah.
remember that. So before we get into the early to mid '80s, any of the older time, were you guys, Mike? Were you old enough to have the big GI Joes or no?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The ones
And
with
I had
real hair
super
and clothes and stuff.
Yeah, because that's what my Dean and my other brother Dan had. And that was, they would play with my sisters at the same age. She had Barbies, they had GI Joe. They were the same scale, and they would battle basically.
Well, I had a lot of the 10-inch Mego superhero figures. And
Oh,
they had
yeah.
Super Joe, which was also 10-inch, but the Barbies were bigger.
Oh, okay.
So whatever.
But Storm Amazon Island.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So.
It's pretty fun. Yeah, some of them had. I remember because they had them, and I would, as a kid, I thought it was a cool. Just even though I wanted the little ones that were coming out new, it was still cool to look at those. And I remember there was one guy. Yes, some of them had hair, like actual
stubbly hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some were plastic molded, but one of them had a little button on the back of his head, and you make his eyes go left and right. And I thought that was the coolest. I don't know why I thought that was so cool to have him just look left and right.
Well, they had the Steve Austin figure that was the same, Steve Austin, the $6 million man, the Bionic Man, and he had a eye you could look through that had a 2x magnification.
Yeah.
To simulate his bionic eye.
That was it reminds me of a 40-year-old virgin. He's like, "Is that the $6 million man's boss? Like, why do you have that?" It's like, well, it's worth way more than
exactly.
It's way more rare. Yeah.
His boss. I just love that.
Yeah, I'm like, because my brother was born in 1970, closer to Mike's age, and I got his hand-me-down of the $6 million man and the Evil Knievel because he was a little older.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would play with some of those because it was the GI Joes, and it was there was some. I think for superheroes, I think all we had was Hulk. I don't think we had anything else toy-wise. There was just a kind of a shitty. I mean, they were all shitty.
Well, in the 70s, 80s, Hulk was probably probably the most well-known Marvel superhero because of the TV show.
He and Spider-Man. Yeah, for sure.
When was the TV show? Was that late 70s?
Yeah, 70s, 80s, and then they did a couple of the made-for-TV movies later on in the late 80s.
And there was a Spider-Man TV show too that was terrible. But
well, they had him in the Electric Company, that PBS kids show.
So, should we move into the 80s crop of gifts? No? Okay. So, I'm trying to remember
We're still not to the point where Xtreme's born yet, right?
Yeah.
When were you born, Xtreme? 80?
1980.
There we go.
Wow.
Mike, you were already fucking or no?
I was learning that if I rubbed myself the right way, it felt good. Yeah.
You wouldn't finish, but it felt good.
Yeah.
So, would you
I was
say
in high school when all of a sudden was like, what the fuck was that?
So the same JCPenney catalog came, but different pages were stuck together.
Yes.
Exactly.
And you didn't
they
even
had the
mind when you
underwear
got the
section
spring
there, too,
catalog.
that you looked at carefully. So.
Well, because it was only the winter catalog that had the toys in it, so the rest of the catalogs were just clothes and shit. But that had a bigger section of lingerie, which you enjoyed.
Yeah.
So it was probably like bathing suits and underwear.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad had a lot of catalogs too that sold a lot of bathing suits that I remember. Ooh, these are interesting.
But that was when you could buy a gun from Sears too, so that was fun to look at.
I'm going to say that's probably Roebuck. Roebuck probably made that happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Sears. Once you drop
the biggest company in the world, Sears.
That I still can't believe it's around. Like it's that exists.
It went from the biggest company to how are they still existing?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
There's still a Sears in Woodfield.
I will tell you that this girl I used to work with started working at the corporate location, in Hoffman Estates, and this was probably 8 or 9 years ago, and she was telling me back then, the only division of the company making any profit was the digital side and the app. And I'm like, well, you have Amazon, you have Walmart. Like, yeah, so their thing was to try to contour your experience, the things you bought before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they all do that. But that was what they marketed, shop your way or whatever. But now I can't even. That was so long ago. I can't imagine.
Well, they sold off all their in-house brands. Like Craftsman used to be a good brand, and then they probably sold to China or something.
In high school, I worked for Sears Hardware, and Craftsman tools still had a lifetime warranty.
Yeah, you used to be able to go into Sears with a broken wrench, and they'd hand you a brand new one.
Yeah.
The stock number from a tool from the 50s is the same as the one from the 90s. I thought that was crazy. And then at a certain point, they said power tools are out.
Yeah.
Shit out of luck. And then they said ratchets are out. Because then we used to send them to get refurbished. And so come like, hey, you do ratchet? I'm like, don't grab that one off the shelf, my friend. I've got a box here. And I had a box under the counter. And they were fucking trashed. But they worked. And I'm like, here's your new one. And they were pissed. But I'm like, that. At a certain point, it was going that route of we can't do this anymore to give away brand new shit.
Well, they reduced the quality, basically, so they could. The break rate was too high.
So moving into the 80s, I think there's a bunch of different toy lines that I started getting into when I was of age. I think probably G.I. Joe was the first because I already had, I don't remember when the cartoons, Xtreme, when did the cartoons start? Later 80s?
Mid 80s.
I was going to say, it's like 85, wasn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember getting the first 2 G.I. Joes I got, and it wasn't actually like a Christmas thing, but it was going to lead into that, was Rock and Roll and Breaker were the first two.
Those were Gen 1, right?
Yeah.
That would be first gen.
And Breaker was as generic as possible.
And had a snap-on helmet with a little glass visor that came down?
Yeah,
right?
he's a Time Life operator is what it looked like. Rock and Roll at least looked cool. Those were my first 2. I'm like, this is cool. So then I remember seeing some kind of, I don't know if it was a commercial or maybe in the catalog for a G.I. Joe train set. And that was what I became obsessed with, getting that before I started getting all the figures. This was like, even though now we think that's crazy because there's no way the scales don't match up, but I wanted it. And I remember like telling my parents I wanted it. And then before Christmas, maybe like a few weeks before, I'm snooping around the house. And my dad had we converted the garage to his office. And so there's a bunch of cabinets in there. And I remember just looking behind this green cabinet and I'm like, that looks like the train set. And I remember telling my mom, like, I think I saw G.I. Joe train set. You know, I don't want, it's like, what are you talking about? You must have been dreaming. And then I went and looked again and it was gone. Yeah. I'm like, I guess I was dreaming. I got it on Christmas, opened it up, we set it all up, and
is that the one where like one train had like a missile on it and you would back it up into station and it would? I think I might have had that same set.
And it would come up.
Yeah.
So it was more trains. It was kind of like, I don't know. Even with, like I mentioned the Dukes of Hazzard thing. I don't know. It became one of those where because it was a licensed thing, I was into it. Even though in reality it was way more train set than it was G.I. Joe.
Okay.
It was train cars, but they were militarized basically. One of them I think did have rockets on it, but I remember what I really loved about it was you had paratroopers that came with it. So you had Cobra, and they were basically like a sheet of vinyl, and that was the parachute. And you drop them in, you try to get them to land on the train, and of course, usually they ended up on the tracks getting run over, and that's how they met their demise. Not on the battlefield. You think the casualties would come on the battlefield, but they came on
training exercises kill more troops than any wars.
It was a bit friendly fire at times, but so that was my big one before I went all in on G.I. Joe, the action figures. So I looked it up, and it was crazy because I thought it was much later. Look at this artwork. I want to see if this is up. This looks.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I did a Google image search.
Yeah, this looks like a fucking painting, like an old timey
Yep.
60s kind of painting. But so that was.
I think I had that
was
set.
it.
Yeah.
You had it too. You said.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember being so excited to get it, but then the excitement went away soon after because then I realized the action figures were where it was at.
Yep.
You know, and so it was a cool concept, and I guess we were probably a train family for a while because Dean and Dan and my dad had trains set up like in the garage. Maybe that was part of it. Same with the slot cars, but getting into action figures was more my thing. Like it was almost like the smaller ones became a thing that only I had, and it wasn't hand-me-down, either hand-me-down toys or hand-me-down ideas of what the fun thing is.
Like, can you imagine if you had the G.I. Joe train set and your dad was, or your brother was into like super mega train layout, and you came in like, can I put my G.I. Joe train there? Get that crap out of here. That's not canon.
Yeah, my dad had a pretty, like a table, a train set up in the garage. And I remember one of my friends, like down the street from me, his dad also had a similar setup, and theirs was way more elaborate than ours. We just had ours, like it was in the garage, like on a table, like on like horses.
Ours was on a ping pong table.
Yeah, exactly. This kid down the street, his dad had one that folded up and down on the wall. Yeah, that was pretty fucking badass. Oh, and they had a slot car the same way. Mm-hmm. So it was on hinged, like a little thing comes down, and I'm like, that's pretty badass. What did you guys have that same time? This was 83, 84. I looked it up. It was before G.I. Joe action figures took everything by storm. It was before that. What did you guys have around that same time period?
I was into the Kenner line of Star Wars big time.
Yeah, it was for me. It was Star Wars figures and Micronauts and Atari games. So
the
Micronauts.
Yeah,
they were their thing.
See-through guys. They were see-through, right? Were they?
Yeah, well, the time travelers were.
Okay.
They were generic sci-fi. That's where Kroyer came from. If you, I don't know. But their whole thing was their ships and their trucks and whatever were all, you could take them apart. Were all interchangeable. And they had like wrist articulation, their joints, like elbows and knees bent and all of that. And they were far more articulated, but they were their own universe.
Yeah.
And one of the big problems they had was there was one bad guy. That was a Kroyer. And then they came out with a Kroyer 2 later on. But it was just like there's just one bad guy. And so it didn't have a lore. Yeah. So it was kind of weird.
You know, I was thinking about this earlier today when I was trying to remember stuff and grab some screenshots. And it's funny how we relate this to it. So we all had toys when we were younger, and some of us toys now. 3 out of 4 of us. Mike is the only one who's grown out of toys. You know, we talk today, we talk about a tabletop war game. And we're like, there's not enough factions. There's not this. We need to have more. Like, look back to what Mike just said. There was one bad guy. The original G.I. Joes, it was like Cobra Commander and Cobra Officer. Maybe Destro. I don't think there was shit else for a while. I could be wrong. But I remember it was like nobody wanted them because there was no personality there until they started to get guys that personality. But we were fine. Like, if you think about it now, game comes out now, and we talked about Star Wars Legion, for example. Oh, there's only 2 factions. Only 2 factions is all we grew up with. Good and bad.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, I know it's toys versus a game, but if you think about dumbing it down to back then, we weren't demanding more factions with anything.
Early G.I. Joe had more grunts on the G.I. Joe side, and Cobra always had their grunts. And then it became G.I. Joe, everyone was a specialist named character, but Cobra still had grunts.
Cobra, yeah. There was I don't remember, there might have actually been G.I. Joe codenamed Grunt.
Yeah, there might
have been, where
he was infantryman.
Yeah, I don't even think I had him. I thought Breaker was boring. I don't want that. That's even, less going on there. So I'm thankful that when I got into G.I. Joe, there's more. Xtreme, you want to say something about G.I. Joe?
Yeah, several things. The first wave of figures, they didn't have the names initially. It was just, this is Grunt, this is Marine, this is Army Man. And then Larry Hama came in and actually gave them personalities. And there was also no bad guy initially until they went to Marvel comic books, and the guys at Marvel were like, well, who do they fight? And they were like, I don't, they're just Joes. I don't know, what do you mean? Like, well, what are they going to do? And Larry's famous line is, so do they like march around and do PT all the time? That's not very fun.
This is Push-Up Man.
That's sort of, in a way, it's very early 80s though, because we bragged about the military, and we're not in a war per se. I mean, there are wars going on, but it kind of, in a weird way, made sense to have just GI Joes and not need an enemy. Like, takes on all comers. There are no comers. Like, are you supposed to use other lines? Like, are you
I always
supposed
found it funny that in the cartoon, like every GI Joe has a specialty and they have a special weapon that comes with them. But in the cartoon, they all shoot the same gun.
Yeah.
It's like an M1 Biran. They all fire the same gun.
I believe we all know knowing is half the battle, but I believe the pie chart says the other half is red and blue lasers.
Yes.
That's the other half of the battle. Yeah, so I think when it came to G.I. Joe, it was really interesting that I had mostly G.I. Joe, not a lot of Cobra. I remember mailing away for Hooded Cobra Commander, and because that was the big one, to get that version. I had the regular Cobra Commander, and I had one Cobra Officer. I had Destro and Baroness, and I had Zaymot and Tomac. Those came out later, though, if I remember correctly.
Yep, Zartan, Tomac, Zaymot, all those guys
It was mostly, they're like, I guess my point is, G.I. Joe's always outnumbered Cobra, whether it was my friend coming over with his, and then we had to decide, like, well, who wants to be, we both wanted to play G.I. Joe. I did have one friend who always wanted to play Cobra, and that was awesome, because he got way probably better stuff than I did for his gifts, and he had like 3 hisses come in. It's the kid with 3 Land Raiders at the 40K table. Like, well, why do you have 3? Why would you have 3? He had 3 hisses, and I'm like, holy fuck! So I had to like step up my game to get to that. And I remember getting, it was like a slow grow. It would be if we were doing a campaign in 40K, and we said we're going to get 500 points every week. It was a slow growth. Usually Christmas gifts was something big. And I got a few things to throw out there that might jog some memory. So the first big thing I ever got was this HQ command center.
Yep, I didn't have
You guys remember that?
Too rich for my blood.
Yeah, and I don't think, looking back, I think it was like $50, but
yeah, but that was expensive back then.
Yeah, I guess so. The great thing about this was there is a part. It was like a garage for tanks, basically, in there. Mm-hmm. This part right here, you put the data cards in there. That thing.
Oh, if you cut them out on the back, or you.
You cut out the card and you put it in there. And so I got that in Duke one year for Christmas. And it was awesome because it was like, I've got a base. So now at least I got that. I may not have the numbers yet to take on the 3 hiss drivers, but I've got the base. And at least when I got figures here and there, whatever, they made their way in there.
Yeah, that was the thing about Christmas. It was when you would get the one big thing. You could get a figure here and there throughout the year, but you had to wait for Christmas or birthday to get something significant.
Agreed. I never really got big stuff. Was only Christmas. So that was the first G.I. Joe big thing. The next one I'm going to show you is this one. It took me longer than it should have to find it because I didn't know the name of it. And of course, I didn't write the name of it down. So let's see if this one. Do you guys remember getting this?
No. Is that a G.I. Joe oil platform?
Yeah, pretty much. I remember in a weird way, this was, I don't know if it was in the cartoon, that I think it was in the water, but like on, it was on supports. And I remember thinking, this is actually cooler than the headquarters. And it shouldn't have been. But I thought it was cool because it seemed more like in the action. Xtreme, does that ring a bell for you at all?
It does. It seems really familiar.
Like the Tactical Center or something. It's a generic name. It's not anything like a cool name, but it was something like the All-Purpose Tactical Center, something like that. I just remember thinking the platforms raised up and down, and that was cooler to me in a weird way. I don't know why though.
My first big G.I. Joe for Christmas was the F-15. That was back when they actually modeled everything off real military hardware.
Yeah.
And it came with Ace, the cool pilot guy. with the and he had
That was
the plastic parachute.
That was like one of the coolest things when that came out. And I remember, I don't think I got that when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got it later on. But I was starting.
No, it was an F-14 because the wings could articulate.
The wing, yeah. I was starting to build up my second faction, if you will, and getting more Cobras. So I remember getting the Cobra Rattler for, I think it was like my birthday. And that was they're smaller, but they're main.
It was their air superiority fighter, which an A-10, which is model after, is not.
No, but it was really cool looking. It was.
I had so many bombs and they'd fall off. I'd lose them.
I got the Cobra Rattler. I started to build up the Cobra Rattler, and then the
Nighthawk. Is that the giant SR-71?
Oh, was that a bigger one for them? I think.
Yeah, it was battle off the SR-71 Blackbird, which was a surveillance aircraft, not a fighter aircraft. But GI Joe used it, or Cobra uses a fighter, and it had a little drone on top of it that you could put another pilot in and launch.
In a weird way, I started to like notice, even as a kid, that why are the bad guys getting cooler looking stuff? And it was bothering me. So I wanted to have both. And then it's over time, my friends had both too. We got, but to build up. But I just kept thinking they had the Cobra water moccasin. Does that sound familiar? It was like a jet boat.
It was cool. A small little,
Yeah.
It came with Copperhead, I believe, right? Xtreme? Copperhead was the driver?
Sounds familiar.
I don't know. Sure.
I remember then getting the G.I. Joe I got around the same time. So I'm getting all these cool Cobra vehicles. And then I get like the G.I. Joe APC to hold your models. They were like little holes to put them in there. I'm like, it's cool, but why do these guys keep getting like fucking a billion guns on everything? And we get,
troop carrier.
It was driving me
Speaking
crazy.
of gifts for birthday, I got the G.I. Joe Whale, the hovercraft, and that was amazing.
Oh, that's cool. I don't think I ever got that one. Did it actually float?
I think it did. It also had the little jet sled that would launch from underneath it. You could put a guy in.
Nice.
Did not.
Yeah. Did he meet his demise as well? In the bathtub?
And it had depth charges on it, and it had guns everywhere, and you could store a lot of dudes in it. It was probably my favorite. Aside from, I know we're going to get into something you got that was even better.
Yeah, that's my last screenshot there. Then I don't want to make it a whole G.I. Joe episode. Xtreme would love that. I took this picture because I thought it was also, the guy decided to make it a 69, which I thought was pretty ballsy. It's supposed to be 99. So the Peletis tradition in my family was, if you want something really big, you're going to get it the day after, because we are a cheap race and we circle in the catalog something huge, and we got it. I look back, retail was 110 for the aircraft carrier. It's become lore and myth over the years, another
grail item
of never getting, but it's like, it's crazy what people spend on kids now. How much is a PS5, Biran?
$500.
And I know inflation, but I don't think this would cost $500 now.
I could actually see Hasbro doing a reissue of it for over $500.
Really?
They have their own little internal Kickstarter. I could totally see them doing it.
Maybe just for men to buy, not for
not for kids.
Buy for boys. I guess my point.
I was going to say, what you're saying is, like, I remember the Atari 2600 games in 1980 and 81 were $30.
Yeah, and that seemed like a lot.
That'd be $100 nowadays easily.
Well, cartridges did get up to that point. There were some Super Nintendo cartridges that had, if they had more chips in them, like there was some that were almost $100, like the Final Fantasy games and stuff like that. Video
games started to become very expensive. After getting, so I'll finish with the G.I. Joe thing. So I get the aircraft carrier, and we set it up. It's set up for 1 week in the living room.
To take up so much space.
Would not fit in my bedroom. So in the living room for 1 week, everyone in my family stepped on it and hurt their foot at some point. That's part of the deal. You know what I mean? You step on an aircraft carrier, you can expect you're in the battle now.
Mm-hmm.
The voice, it was a little like CB looking thing.
Yep.
I thought it would have been a little better. And that's not why you get it. It's not high quality, but it did function. But for me, the coolest part was knowing that the Admiral, Keelhaul, was now going to pull rank in a normal battle.
Right, because he outranks Duke.
Right. Duke was my leader, and then Flint, I always liked him more anyway, but they were battling for that spot. But they were both sergeants, correct? Or was one of lieutenants?
Duke was is captain by rank? Xtreme, do you know?
Back then he was?
Army captain is different from Navy captain.
I have a feeling they were both sergeants at the time. I could be wrong, though.
But Brian, you should be able to look up what his E grade was.
Yeah, right. I'm sure
they were all like EO4s or something, right?
But I knew that the admiral was outranking. So that was cool because I knew no one else in my group was going to have that guy. And it was my first taste of flaunting toys in front of people, things that we take for granted today that we like to do with each other.
Yeah.
That was my first taste of how does it feel to not be a poor person. I didn't know what was going on in the checkbook. I didn't care about that. I knew what I had. And it was great to have that on there.
He was your Forge. The flag is the Forge World Titan.
Yeah.
He was that ridiculous fucking forger. He was the Tau Manta version of that. My last quick G.I. Joe thing, two quick points real quick. We had a dog named Rambo, which I'm going to talk about how Rambo comes into play too, the toy. Our dog Rambo decided to feast on Shipwreck's arm. And so he lost an arm, we're going to say in battle. You know, when I wrote the lore for that, it was in battle. My mom put it in a sling, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, what was left? It was like from here, gone. In the sling, that was kind of cool. Gave him a little character. Not that the parrot wasn't enough character.
Well, you could have given him a hook because that would be very on brand for a
should have given him a hook, yeah. And so the other thing I want to quick throw out there, because the other day we talk about buying action figures now. I saw in a review of the new Destro figure, a newish Destro figure, the first comment in the YouTube review says, and this is why I wear this shirt, I was today years old when I found out Destro's collar is the Cobra logo.
Yep.
And I'm like, whoa. Did you guys know that?
He's like a contractor for Cobra. He doesn't.
His collar is this fucking logo.
He reminds me of when I worked at Motorola back in the day, when everyone thought it was cool to work at Motorola. The try-hard contractors would try to pretend they were real Motorola employees. Destro was not a Cobra employee. He was a subcontractor.
No, but
he kissed ass with his collar.
That, or he was destined to work with Cobra.
Yeah.
Based on his fashion choices.
I was today's years old when I found out that Destro was a Scottish white guy.
Yeah, I thought he was black early on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He just seemed he seemed too cool to be white, frankly.
Yeah.
You know?
Even though his chest was exposed and it was white.
I thought that was a flesh-colored shirt, like a flesh tank top.
Like a dickie that you would wear under a sweater.
So before we move on, any other fun G.I. Joe toy stories you want to throw out there?
Well, before that, when we were still in, because there was a cross-gen of G.I. Joe and Star Wars for me, and I remember one Christmas, my brother and I both wanted AT-ATs, or as snooty, horrible Star Wars fans call them, AT-ATs.
So real quick on that note, what about when they don't spell a word? Like AT-RT is not a word.
Right.
So you say AT-RT,
I do.
But then we always say AT-AT.
Yep, because that's the proper way.
It's weird, but we do it anyway.
Right, it's the exception that proves the rule.
Xtreme saying no.
Xtreme says AT-AT.
I bet you he also spells out R2 ARTOO as well.
Xtreme was 0 years old when Empire Strikes Back came out, so I think I know better.
Oh, on that note.
But instead of each of us getting one, we had to share one, which meant my brother got an AT-AT and I didn't.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty big toy, though.
It was. That was another grail item of the time, where it was like,
that's probably. I know it wasn't as big as the aircraft carrier, but money-wise, it's probably right up there.
It was probably about $60 to $80, but I remember my mom was always quick to wrap stuff, so we couldn't go snooping. And it's like, that's the only box that big. We know what it is. And I was at a friend's house like, well, the Lego castle, blah, 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 could be that. I go, yeah, but I don't want that shit. They wouldn't give me that.
Did you say shit?
Probably because my parents weren't around. I was talking to the kid.
You were like, so were you the kid that introduced swears to your friends?
No, my brother introduced them to me, and I passed it along.
You're like, hey guys, I got a new word. Shit. It's basically poop. Like, awesome.
But yeah, my grail for that was AT-AT, and my grail for G.I. Joe was the F-14, which funnily looks ridiculous. Even though the aircraft carrier is huge,
It's too
The
big.
F-14 looks ridiculous on it 'cause it's too big.
Yeah, I remember because when I got it, it was way later because you needed it. And now I got the aircraft carrier, I needed it, but it was gigantic. It was. I remember that. Yeah, I think. What was I going to say about? What was the Star Wars thing? But yeah, with GI Joe, that was. I don't know what it was because it was its own thing. Do you think from someone who had Star Wars toys? Because I didn't. Mine were secondhand. Was that a natural progression, or were people fighting?
Yeah, the scale was the same.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, I never mixed them though. It seemed odd to me to even consider that. So I never played with them together.
Yeah.
But it seemed like, I mean, card back figures, exact same form factor as far as the materials and stuff. So.
Yeah. Because that was it. I mean, until they re-released, like I think it was Power of the Force in the 90s.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a whole lot going on with Star Wars toys from 83 to mid 90s.
There was the awesome Ewoks line.
Oh, that's right. I don't know if it was mine or my brother, probably mine because it would have came out after Ewoks were the big thing for a while. There was a pit when they fall in, and there's the spongy substance.
No, that was the Death Star playset.
Yeah, that was the Death Star playset.
Yeah, it had sponges, and you could crank the thing close.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Why do I remember it being brown? Did I
It was
shit out
orangish, I think.
I thought
The foam
I
insert.
thought there was an Endor playset that had a brown foam thing.
No,
Okay.
not with
I
the
say
little.
that because
The Death Star had the little foam garbage. It was basically to simulate garbage or being
I
cracked.
don't think I think I would have remembered it. I think it was like a swampy thing, but I just remember the reason why I bring it up is
maybe a Dagobah playset had that.
it might have been a Dagobah playset. I don't remember any figures. I just remember like the base. I bring it up though because I remember like as a teenager, I'm snooping around in the garage and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And the spongy substance was a completely different substance then. It was like coming apart in my hand.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
because
it would oxidize and it would.
Yeah, it was like freaking me out. Like, what the fuck? Like, what is this made of? Even though I know it was a sponge, but it wasn't a sponge 10 years after that.
It's like the foam backing of old Citadel miniatures. After a while, it just.
Did that do the same thing?
Or if you have like really old Army transport foam, we'll do that too.
Oh wow, I guess I never realized that. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other G.I. Joe based Toy Stories?
Yeah, so I got into G.I. Joes later than everyone else.
When you were 35.
Well, yes.
33.
I think, I don't know exactly when the time scale was, but the Cobra Commander I had was the silver helmeted, the silver and blue suit. So it is much later. I think that would have been.
He wasn't.
Was that his armored suit and stuff? Yeah, I remember that. That's when I got out of G.I. Joe was when that line, because that line had a lot of cool stuff.
Because the first one was a blue suit and a silver mask, then hooded. This one was all silver?
It's silver and blue, and it's like a power armor. It's protective. And it was actually, I remember it in the comic, too.
In the comic, it was actually a pretty cool story. But
yeah.
That's neither here nor there.
So it's here and there. It is.
So on and so forth, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of the big stuff. I had the Tomahawk, which was probably the biggest thing that I had. And then I had Rolling Thunder, which is still one of my favorite toys. I'm probably going to buy.
Which one is Rolling Thunder?
The Dreadnoks car.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, was it like a buggy?
Or a pickup?
Sort of both. It was kind of stretched out, but it had like the rotating guns on the side and the open canopy on the top with like armor
That's pretty
plates.
cool. I remember getting the Dreadnoks towards the end of my run, and I thought they were awesome. But I don't remember getting stuff for them. Were they pretty huge when you got into them, Xtreme?
I remember I had. They were one of my favorites, so I think that
they were in a lot of the cartoons and the storylines and stuff.
Because I had Zartan, Zarana, and whoever came with Rolling Thunder, I forget his name. The guy that looks like the dude from Hook, I think. But I don't know. So those were the two big things that I had. And then my biggest thing for my birthday when I first started getting into GI Joes. It was pretty awesome. Like I came home from school and went into my bedroom. My parents didn't say anything, and they had opened up like a shit ton of GI Joes and had them all like placed all over my room, like having a battle.
Oh, awesome.
Did you come out screaming at him and say, mint on card, mint on card?
Well, one to play with, one on the shelf,
And one just
probably one just in case.
No, but that was super awesome.
Did they actually take time and pose them properly?
They did. They were split up between Joes and Cobras.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure
Parents
my
of the
dad.
year right there.
But it was really
Because
cool.
not only did they buy it for you, they took enough interest to set it up properly.
Right? Yeah. Almost
They
belong over there, Brian, and they belong over there. Never will they mix. They
These
teaching
need
you
to stay
early on.
segregated.
Yeah,
This is the water fountain for Cobra.
right. They could have also been. We want to stay loyal. We don't want these traitors joining. I wouldn't make it about race, Biran. I was going to make it about being proud of who you're fighting for.
And you mentioned your shipwreck, losing an arm. My fridge lost an arm.
Oh
He
no!
was down a slide.
Fridge was a
and-
mail away as well, right?
Yeah, he was a mail away, so I was really bummed, but I never stopped playing with him because he was freaking awesome. But,
He had
so
the mace with the football on the end. Was that his weapon?
There's a swinging football, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was supposed to be
I would-
swinging, but it was all one solid piece.
yeah. So it was pretty cool. Like I had that one. Cobra Commander was mail order. The guy I sent you, I forgot I had Mansa Rider. It's like on a wind sail surfboard thing or whatever.
Yep.
Him, and then was Sergeant Slaughter a mail order as well?
Initially, yes.
Initially, but he did get released. Yeah,
Okay.
in his little vehicle, his tank, his little baby tank.
In
Yeah,
a
I
weird
had-
way. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
had the mail away Slaughter, then I ended up getting his tank too, so that was always kind of weird because I always had Slaughter leading my Joes. Like he took over the Joes from me.
He kind of did in the comic too, especially in the long series about Serpentor. He was kind of the main focus for the Joes.
Yeah,
But then
I
he kind
think
of
Sergeant Slaughter, along with like friends at school talking about wrestling, started getting me into that side of things too, because it was weird. Like now we think we're crossing genres and mixing things, but it was all pretty. I mean, Biran, you said you wouldn't have Star Wars fight against G.I. Joe, yet we have the fucking fridge and Sergeant Slaughter,
Because they were brought into the canon.
who's Sergeant Slaughter is like how breaking 4, 5, and 6th wall, because he's a real person. He might actually be military in real life. I don't know, but he's a real person. He's a wrestler, and he's a GI Joe. So he's a toy, but he's a person. It was just mind-boggling, even as a kid, like how this all makes sense. But he was still cool.
Now, Brian is a military family. Do you find Sergeant Slaughter to be doing stolen valor, or is it okay because it's a character?
I'm okay with it because it's a character. But there was one. I don't know. The whole story in general, I would say I'm okay with this character. There were a couple times where he would like accept awards and like be on, and that's kind of pushing things.
Did he like give a graduation speech at West Point or something?
The guy would accept awards?
Yeah, he would accept awards, and it was kind of portrayed as if, yes, he was of this military background.
So let me ask you, Xtreme, when late 80s, early 90s, when Sergeant Slaughter in wrestling became a bad guy, and Iraqi war sympathizer bad guy, was that just like heartbreaking for you?
I don't know.
Or were you not watching then?
I think during that period, I don't think I was watching. I watched before and after, so I think there was just like that period when that was happening that I wasn't watching.
Because that was well after, he was known from G.I. Joe toys and cartoons and comics. It was straight up wrestling, but it was a weird kind of thing when you're a kid and still watching wrestling for these larger than life heroes. And wait, he's a good guy, but they're booing him. Well, he's against Hulk Hogan, so we're supposed to boo him. That's the rules. Then you find out, oh wait, he's talking to the guy speaking a different language. Something seems off.
One of the weirdest Sergeant Slaughter things I remember from being a kid, we had a Bigfoot VHS tape, and he did like a tug of war with, it was Slaughter, Hogan, and a couple other wrestlers did a tug of war against Bigfoot. And
You mean Bigfoot,
lost.
the monster truck?
Yeah.
Yeah, the monster truck.
Not Sasquatch.
Well, I thought maybe he had some footage, and this episode's going to do pretty well.
I would watch them do a tug of war against Sasquatch. That'd be fun.
Didn't Andre the Giant play Sasquatch on the $6 Million Man?
I don't.
Oh,
I could see it.
I think he did, but we'll look that up later.
Okay.
Anyways, continue.
Yeah, I didn't know. If that's true, that's awesome. So,
So who won?
who won what? Oh, that Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I mean,
It
it's probably
looked
one of
like-
those. Go ahead.
It looked like Bigfoot was trying to keep it interesting for a little bit.
That's what I was
Yeah.
going to say. I mean, if it's wrestling, we're going to have a good contest.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be Bigfoot. I think Eddie's standard pickup would still beat those guys.
I would think maybe a Datsun in that era could probably do well too.
Yeah. Front wheel drive, gives it the leverage.
Right.
Weight over the wheels.
Oh man. So, what are other like?
So my biggest surprise Christmas, best Christmas ever, was in the 80s. I want to say it was probably 86, 87. So I wanted to get into RC cars. We had a hobby shop that was in Barrington Square, not near the Garibaldi's there.
Sounds fancy.
And they sold like the high-end cars, and I'm like, well, that's too expensive because you got to buy the car, you got to buy a charging kit, you got to buy a
Did that
remote.
place later become a game store with like Warhammer stuff too?
I remember it became a slot car store where people could go and race slot cars. I don't remember much.
Because I used to go there to buy like games. It was like a gamer's paradise, but
Something like
called
that.
something else.
But it was a hobby store focusing on RC cars. So I would go there. We'd go to the movies at Barrington Square, and then I'd drag my dad into the hobby shop to go, oh, look at all this cool stuff. And he's like, wow, that's expensive. And I go, then for Christmas, I'm like, well, I'd like an RC car, but here's one from Radio Shack or whatever,
Yeah.
where it's all in one kit and it's cheap and plastic. But
I remember getting so this is the era where on our wall we would have a Lamborghini Countach.
yes, yep,
And Ferrari Testarossa on our wall, and I wanted it. Now, like you said, we're at service merchandise. You know, you're not getting this. Let's go to Radio Shack. Sure.
Yeah.
Broke within a week.
Yep.
It was a piece of fucking shit. I should have known because you get the controller, and I'm like, why is there one knob? Like, shouldn't there be like fucking 6 knobs on here? It was one fucking knob.
There was that one for the Sandcrawler for Star Wars. It had one button on it.
Yeah.
It just goes forward.
Yeah, and no, it would go forward, and you click it again, it would go right, and click it and go left. Like you had to like rapidly hit it, and the antenna was it looked like a piece of coat hanger.
Yeah, the Radio Shack remote control cars, it looked like it was just flopping around. It was no. I wanted to feel like I wanted to pull out like an actual antenna.
Yeah.
I wanted this.
Yeah.
I didn't get that. It was like a little. It was almost like the size of a cell phone and a little thing coming out. And these sucked.
Yep. And so I remember, and then that leading up to Christmas, I always snooped around, and I saw the Radio Shack big pickup truck thing that I said I wanted because I was settling. I didn't think I'd get the hobby grade RC car. And they even sold these in the Sears catalog, and I'd always like have that page open and leave it open.
Those were good ones in the catalog. Those were the good ones.
Yeah, the kits, basically, where you had to build the whole thing and whatever. So I saw the one from Radio Shack. I'm like, that's okay. I'm still happy with that. I'm happy with what the lot I've been given because I said that's what I wanted, and they got it for me, and it was great. And I opened it up, and I was like, oh, great. And my dad goes, he did the one more thing.
Yeah,
and there it was, the RC car. It was the Grasshopper. It was the entry-level hobby grade that you had to build and everything. It had a smaller motor than the rest
Was
of
that
them.
kind of that was a buggy too?
Yes. Yeah, they all look kind of like sand dune buggies.
I remember like the good ones had like the knobby tires.
Yeah, knobby tires and real shocks and stuff, and
Yeah.
it had a real motor and you had to use a rechargeable battery pack in it.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
so I had
never
that
got
box, I had the charger, I had the remote and everything. And it was one of those one more thing. It was very much like a Christmas Story when, what's that behind the counter there? And it was
Your dad was kind of doing the Columbo thing.
Yeah.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Now, did he know the Radio Shack one sucked?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, well, he knew I was settling. He knew what I wanted. And he spent the money on the Radio Shack one, probably still like $30-$40 as a decoy.
Yeah.
And he didn't hide it very well. Like, he had this cunning plan. And I was like, oh,
now,
okay.
the plan sounded very cunning. It could have even been another level. If you were so bad that season that you're getting this, the other one's getting returned. And you would be none the wiser.
Right.
Because even
that's what I was saying. If I acted dejected that I didn't, because if I acted dejected that I got the Radio Shack one and was a bitch, that'd probably be the only one I got. My dad would go return it.
You might have said, oh, man, I could have been better this year.
Yeah.
I was a prick all year, and look at it, got a fucking Radio Shack remote control car.
Yep. Instead, I was gracious with what I got, and then that's when the one more thing happened. And to make my matters worse, at least for my dad, is my dad and my uncle were there. They had to put it together that night, and it took them till like 2 a.m.
I bet
there's no way at that age I could put it together.
Instructions weren't cracked open either, I bet.
Yeah. Oh, they were, but it was, it's a Japanese product, so it's very complicated.
Like,
and then within 2 days, my brother had backed it into a brick wall and shattered open the gearbox.
Oh, I would have loved it. It was like, Brian, one more thing. You're like, yes. And they're like, I signed you up to Radio Shack Battery of the Month Club. Oh, thanks, Dad.
One more thing. Here's a candy cane filled with M&Ms.
They're the Radio Shack brand batteries, aren't they? Okay, thank you.
Well, Rayovac, I think, was the house brand.
Rayovac.
Well, do you guys also have Christmas where it was a sheer volume of gifts, but 95% of them were bullshit gifts, like socks and like a giant Hershey's Kiss? Did you guys get that too?
Oh, yeah.
You kind of here's what you wanted, here's what you get.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're going to get some clothes and some essentials.
Yep.
Yeah, it's weird too. Like, we used to have, for Christmas, we would do Christmas Eve with people on my dad's side of the family, and we would switch off, years. And then Christmas Day on my mom's side, and we'd switch off whoever's hosting it then. And that's when all of me and my cousins were all, young. Things changed as we got older and we stopped doing it. But the problem was, as generous as my aunts and uncles wanted to be, they didn't really know what I wanted.
Right.
And so it was weird sometimes. You had this hope that there was a conversation that took place that said, he's into He-Man now. Like, now he likes He-Man.
Right.
Because you don't want to come in with either something completely off, or I don't know what's worse. Off as in maybe I'll get into it one day, or something from the past.
Right. Here's your Star Wars figures that you stopped playing with 2 years ago.
Right. He doesn't like those anymore. Because I got into He-Man late.
Yeah.
My first He-Mans, and that could have been because of, I love how I said He-Mans. That's how I said it as a kid. My first He-Mans.
And your game tapes. Your He-Mans and your game tapes.
My first He-Man and Skeletor were the Battle Armor ones, which was the second round.
My first He-Man was Moss Man.
Yeah, well, He-Man used to have like the gray, like a gray X.
Mm-hmm.
This was you punch it and it spins.
It spins.
That was the second round of He-Man. Yeah, to have battle damage. Because I remember getting Hot Wheels cars with the same, in Matchbox, the same thing. You smash it and it spins and it's damaged now. That was, different next round of that. But did you guys have a lot of, were you into He-Man a lot?
Yeah. Well, did you do, so you got into He-Man after G.I. Joe?
I did.
I was trying to put together, in a weird way, I put more effort.
I think it was after for me.
I was trying to think if it was alongside G.I. Joe or after. And I'm guessing, maybe you can tell me, I'm guessing after, and I'll tell you why. Because if my first two figures were Battle Armor, He-Man, and Skeletor, that would have had to have been the second wave, right?
I was pretty late into it, yeah. Because I got a lot of He-Man before I got into G.I. Joe. Because at that time I was still an only child, so I got all kinds of cool stuff. So I had an awesome He-Man collection. But I remember I had Castle Grayskull, and people later, I didn't know until I was probably like 25, like the microphone thing was the voice changer, because my dad just intentionally didn't put batteries in it.
Oh,
so that
smart.
it wouldn't make noise. So I had no idea until I was an adult, like, oh, that toy did something else too.
I had the slime pit. Did any of you guys have that?
Yeah.
Was that green slime on the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would drop it on the guys and make them all covered in slime.
Yeah, I had that. I actually did not have Castle Grayskull.
Neither did I.
My cousin did, and we play at his house. And then I'm trying to think. One of my friends had Snake Mountain. Was that Skeletor's house? His house. I think that's how I refer to it.
It was bigger than Castle Grayskull, wasn't it? I kind of remember it being huge.
It was a little bit bigger. I don't know if it was considerably bigger, but
I had a big He-Man collection, but I had 0 He-Man and 0 Skeletor.
I was never, although I liked He-Man, I never felt as into it as I was G.I. Joe, because I don't know if it was noticing they're all the same figure. And
I think there were a couple of variants, because there were some that were slightly less muscled, but
there's like
cake level.
He-Man had like a 16-pack, and regular Master Chief had a 12-pack. But then there's like guys with hairy chest, and that was it.
Yep.
And so it was like, oh, okay. So I remember when we did our episode with He-Man, I was thinking about the ones I had, and I didn't have a gigantic. I probably had maybe 10 or so He-Man figures. It was not a gigantic collection, though. It was a mix of mostly good guys with a few bad guys in there.
I remember thinking it was odd watching the cartoon that there was an episode with Eternia's chief librarian, and he was also ripped. Everyone was just ripped.
Orko was not ripped.
Right, but he was clearly not human.
Well, we don't know that.
That's true.
I just thought he was short and I couldn't see him. He was invisible. Orko.
I think He-Man's hair bothered me even as a kid. That's why I didn't have him. I didn't like his hairstyle, the Dutch boy.
Yeah. The whole He-Man thing, there's so many like just things to unpack.
Yeah, it was clearly indoctrination cartoons.
Yeah, I don't even.
It was trying to make children gay.
Only three people know my fabulous secret. Man-at-Arms, look at him. Village people reject. Orko, he's an alien. Let's tell him the secret. And the Sorceress, which is like He-Man's my gay friend.
She's his blank hag.
That or even just like, He-Man and I, we go shopping together. He's her good friend. So
he gets all tough and he wears armor and he's just so intimidating.
He wears armor, but not on his legs, which I thought was weird. Like,
he's so scary with that loincloth.
Right, slice his leg in half.
How could a skeleton have a ripped body?
There were so many flaws with He-Man even as a kid. But it was cool because there were muscle-bound guys. But I think, did you guys get into wrestling figures then at all?
I had the giant slabs of rubber ones that would, and I had the wrestling ring. It had elastic belt ropes and everything. And after one day of playing, almost all the paint had come off all of them.
So maybe it was because I don't know what it was, but I had the same chunks of rubber, and I remember getting like a good amount of those. One of my first, I did not get Hulk Hogan first, and a friend of mine had him, and I always thought the figure was weird even as a kid because he was like the squatting position. He was like he's sitting down in a chair, but he's not sitting down, and he would never stand upright. But he came with the belts, and the belt fit around him. So when I got into I think they were LJN, I think the figures.
I think you're right.
When I got into it, I got Macho Man first. He was my favorite. And I ended up getting Hulk Hogan because I wanted to get the belt because Macho Man became champion. Here's the problem. And I don't know why, because Hulk Hogan is a bigger man than Macho Man, but the Macho Man figure was like He-Man. It was like fucking 16 pack, So the belt barely fit. I had to I don't know if I taped it or a rubber band. Barely fit on Macho Man. But I remember needing to put the belts on him because he was champion. The other figure I got on the same time, it was another, because I got a few as a gift because I was showing interest in wrestling. Whatever year that was, probably like 88 would have been probably the
And
year.
they had no articulation, right? They were just fixed clothes?
Hunks of rubber. The Jesse the Body figure became my favorite. One, because I thought he was funny on commentary. But the figure was him doing this. He was posing. But unbeknownst to whoever created these hunks of rubber figures, that's also, you could put a guy up there. You can balance them.
Yep.
It was the only figure I had that could actually do a move, a slam of sorts. Even though, who's holding somebody like this, like up on their shoulder, posing? But he did. And I would put him in that. So I remember really.
Those figures were so awful. It's like they should have just used He-Man bodies.
Should have, yeah. Because, like you said, Biran, after you play with them, and you're rougher with wrestling than you are with G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe has guns. Wrestling is, we're going to bash the fuck out of each other. And the rubber, they all look like in the old days when Mike started teaching, he was using an overhead, and he would use a vis-a-vis, and he would touch his face and stuff. It looked like that.
Like all their paint just would come off in peels.
It was like, how do you get fucking I don't even have a purple figure.
My wrestling ring, you could see the paint marks all over it.
Oh, yeah. It was.
And my brother, of course, rubbed off the crotches on all of them.
Was he rubbing them? Those figures were so bad. But then when the next line of wrestling figures came out, I didn't want them anymore. I still was kind of watching wrestling, but and I don't know if Xtreme you ever got it because it would have been the next line. They were probably He-Man size, and they had really big like upper bodies. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. So first, the LJN figures. I've repainted an LJN figure.
Oh wow!
Nice.
So how about that? I found a hillbilly Jim at a flea market, repainted it, and turned it into a lamp, and gave it away as a Christmas gift.
Oh man,
that's fun.
Pretty awesome. But I never, it's kind of weird because I never had because we didn't have a ton of toys or money or anything growing up.
You had Castle Grayskull.
Well, that was before the other children came.
Oh, okay.
So, but I never had a need to get wrestling figures because my cousin had like freaking everything. So I would just go over there and play with his stuff. And then once my brother started getting a little bit older, he started getting all the wrestling figures, and I would just play with all his stuff. So I never really had a need to get my own wrestling figures. I always had access to them. But it was almost all the Hasbro. Like
the Hasbro, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were actually, they would have been, like, I should have liked them. I should have gotten into them, but I don't, it might have been, was that probably 92, 91?
Yeah, I would say early 90s probably, yeah.
Yeah, because at that point it was kind of like I was actively trying to not play with toys because I was trying to become normal, whatever I would have been, 15. I was trying to avoid.
I was graduating high school, so I was
married.
You were already married. I will tell you though, thinking back to the end of my toy run of that era when I tried to say no, I remember two things pretty vividly from this time. And it would have been probably 1990-ish. I remember the last figure line I got into, and I don't know why I thought this was cool. You guys remember the cartoon called Cops?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Cops, roll call. And the guy had
roll. He's like, long arm of the law. Yeah.
Yep. That was a good show.
I'm the cheat. So I got one year for Christmas, I go, I want Cop stuff. And that was all anybody got me. And it was such a short-lived fandom.
So did you have like everything?
Yeah. So I pulled up, because I'm like, I have to look this shit up. And
that cartoon was good. I remember watching it.
I remember, this was their main guy. He was called Long Arm.
Yeah, because he would shoot a handcuff off of his thing.
Yeah. And I'm like, why the fuck? I don't know why. I don't know where it says cops fighting crime in a future time. They made that rhyme. Cap firing pistol includes roll of caps. Look what this came with. I totally forgot that it came with that.
Red,
oh,
yeah,
man. I remember those caps, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe, I was trying to put everything together. Maybe the idea, because I was playing with fireworks with the neighborhood scumbag kids and myself, who was also a scumbag kid. Maybe the idea of merging toys and fireworks made it cool again. I don't remember.
I remember I went through that phase where it was fun to blow up your toys with fireworks.
Yeah, blow up the toys. It was weird. I remember, and I bet you, Mike, I bet Katie may remember this. I remember in 6th grade bringing food fighters into school, like private pizza and whatnot, getting made fun of, and then saying, I think I'm done with this, because it finally hit the stage of, I can't believe everyone gave up on this stuff. Guys,
I was late to leaving the toys game. Transformers was the last line I was serious collector for.
Yeah, Transformers, it was a weird one for me. A couple of people bought me Transformers, but I was never really into them. So I had not Optimus Prime. It would have been not Megatron. Whoever, like, if there's a second or third in command of either of those, I would have had one of each, and that was it. Never.
I had Metroplex, the really dumb city transformer. He's a city that transforms into a robot. Like, what happens to the people that live there when he becomes walking around?
It was a city?
Yeah, but, you know, it was still just, you know, like, it was big, but it was only like this big.
So it was like a block.
Yeah. It's more like a building.
And there's still people in there when that dies, right?
I assume so. It's a city. They probably die every time he transforms.
That was they did that in the Clerks cartoon, where they transformed and people inside, and then they all died. Saw the blood squirt out the sides. So that was probably my last toy-related gift was either 89, probably 1989. That was the Cops fiasco, we'll call it. Real quick to throw out there, between G.I. Joe and that period, there was two very strange toy lines I got into. Again, none of them, it was almost like nowadays, if we find a game you like and you're trying to find that magic again, and you never seem to find the game that you loved, everything was, it's not G.I. Joe.
Right.
But I tried. The two lines, which I thought was hilarious, because I looked back to find these things, and one of them, I don't even know why, I thought it was a Chuck Norris cartoon, and so that became my thing for a couple of months, tops. And I'll never forget this one, getting the Rambo action figure with the fucking rocket launcher, making my mom, like we're at, there was a store called McDade's. Does that sound familiar to you guys at all? On Gary and Carroll Stream. It was a department store. And I'm there. I'll never forget the experience because what happened this fateful day is forever etched in my memory. Begging my mom to get me a Rambo action figure, even though I don't even think I saw the movie because it was R-rated, pretty violent.
R-rated, yeah.
I don't think I saw it, but I knew I wanted it because we just got a dog that my brother's named Rambo. I'm like, well, it's cool. It has to be cool. I want to see the movie. I think it's cool. I saw Rocky, close, right? In this store, I'm dribbling a basketball because I'm an asshole kid who decides I'm going to be annoying in the store.
Yep.
Ball comes out of my hand, slow motion, hits a door that says alarm will sound. And the alarm sounded. And I got yelled at. The shit kicked out of me when I got home. It was the worst experience ever. I'll never forget that time at McDade's.
I had a similar, well, not similar. I had experience at the KB Toys in Stratford Square. I was old enough where my mom would let me go in by myself to the KB, but I was in there and I had to pee so bad to what I was too shy to ask where the bathroom was. I was literally holding my wiener to keep it from pee coming out. And it got so, and then I got to the point where it hurt so bad where I go, well, just let a little bit out. And I guess you can guess where that went.
Yeah.
Oh. So
I was
weird.
too old to be peeing myself in public, but there I was in.
I was the opposite. I couldn't wait to ask where the bathroom was. That became my thing to go to every public bathroom. I don't know why, but as a kid, it was like I got
a way to make money.
Yeah,
and the double tap under the stall.
I think so. I'll tell you what. When you're in Jewel, the store for Chicagoland people,
Jules,
you get an amazing experience at that bathroom because they got to take you between the big doors, and you go upstairs, and then you get to see people working there, smoking and playing cards.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is so fucking cool.
When I worked at Dominic's.
All the time.
Yeah, you had it where you had to go through the back room and up the stairs. And
I'm going up to pee. I'm like, I see this guy's like Full House, motherfucker. I'm like, this is so cool. It's like an old West fucking card game.
We could play cards for money and they can't fire us because we're a union.
Right. Like we're on our 15. Guess what? It's an hour now. Fuck them. That was pretty badass. What other toy or gifts from going from childhood age to then like later years? Anything memorable?
The other in-betweener for me, which I actually really got into, was Mask.
Yeah.
Where the cars would transform and have guns and shit on them. That was fun.
Not the movie with Cher.
No, I didn't have a.
Is that they didn't have figures for that? I don't think.
No, I'm kind of surprised they didn't, but because they had it for everything.
If that was made today, Eric Stoltz would be in a lot of trouble because he's a normal.
Yeah, you need someone that looks deformed to play that role. Otherwise, you're appropriating to deformed culture.
That's right. Mask, the movie came out around the same time Mask the toy.
Yeah.
And
People were confused.
For a moment, I was confused. Mask the toy, did that stand for something?
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember there was a comic book for it, too, for a while.
Comic book and a cartoon.
Yeah.
Was that around the same time Muscle Figures came out?
It was probably, it was 80s.
Yeah,
I started getting those. That, by the way, that same time in 6th grade when it was not cool to play with Food Fighters, on the side, I found a kid to play Muscles with me, and that was great.
That was a Japanese thing, right? Muscle?
Mm-hmm.
It was very, yeah, I mean, and looking back now, at the time, I didn't know it was Japanese.
Yeah, we didn't know Japanese for anything, yeah.
But looking back now, oh, yeah, it was. It definitely was.
No, soon after that, I transitioned to video games for every Christmas.
Did you guys so because I had older brothers, we had all the old systems, like Atari, then 2600, then 5200. We never got 7800. We had Intellivision, and then Dean got a ColecoVision for his birthday in high school, and that was great. I remember the Smurfs game was fantastic. But because of getting all those games, and we had computers too, I actually didn't get a Nintendo until later on. Like, everyone got Nintendo in 85, 86, right? With Rob the robot.
That was the deluxe pack, yeah. Came with Rob and the blaster.
I don't think I got Nintendo until maybe 88 or 89.
I never had the Nintendo Entertainment System. I was a Sega kid.
Oh.
So I had Sega Master System for Christmas, for my birthday, and then Christmas, because my birthday's November, so Christmas is when I got all my games for it. And I had a beautiful stretch of Christmases where Sega games, the thing I liked about them is they came in hard plastic cases that were easier to store and keep. But they all had an instruction manual in them as well. So no matter what my mom did with the wrapping, if I shook it, I knew I didn't know what game it was, but I knew it was a game.
Oh, because you would hear the book sliding around.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for Sega Master System and Genesis, they used the same packaging basically. So I always knew.
I remember a friend of mine he was the only one that had Sega Master. We all had Nintendo at that time. So that's where we got to see Phantasy Star and R-Type and these games that we didn't have. But then it was only a couple of years after Nintendo that we started to get the next group of systems anyway. It was weird. I remember I was beyond all in on Nintendo, but it took a while to get there because I just played at my friend's house all the time. By the time I got it, it was already like Mario 2 was coming out. Now Mario 1, but that was, for a while, was that like your fix for no more toys for Christmas?
Yep.
Now I'm getting games?
Yep.
Yeah.
And there was one year that my parents must have had a really good year financially where I think I got 8 Sega Genesis games in 1 year.
Those are probably $50 a pop.
Yeah, 40 to 50. Phantasy Star 2 was the first one that got up to 80. And I remember I bought it at Polk Brothers.
Polk Brothers, wow.
Yep.
I had Turbo Graphics. I got 1 year for either Christmas or my birthday. And came with Keith Courage and Alpha Zones.
Yep.
And they got Bonk's Adventure with it. And I thought they were cool, much like you did for the case. They were CD cases,
right?
But they weren't CDs. I didn't even
they
have
were U-cards.
I didn't even have a CD player, but the idea of it looked like futuristic with the cards.
Did you ever get the CD-ROM attachment for it?
For Turbo Graphics, no. We had the tap to play 5 players, but we didn't have the CD-ROM. I did have Sega CD though.
I did
then
too.
I got Genesis afterwards.
Yep.
And then I got Super Nintendo. So I had all 3 of that generation, 16-bit.
Yeah, Super Nintendo was my first Nintendo.
Wow. Did you have a regular Game Boy?
Yeah, but I got that actually after because Game Boy was around for a long time.
I think I just borrowed I didn't have a Game Boy. I had Game Gear because I was all Sega in for a while. And that I remember getting, like, asking. I'm sure it was probably part of a Christmas thing, wanting to have a portable, even though I didn't go anywhere. I still played at home, but I wanted to get this like battery pack that hooked into it, but it made it weigh like 10 pounds.
Yep.
And it was this huge pack at the bottom. It was awful, but the idea was like you just keep playing and it should last a long time.
You could play for at least an hour and a half with that pack.
Oh yeah, up to an hour and a half.
I had the Atari Lynx, and it would go through 6 AA batteries in 45 minutes.
I will tell you, I never had the Lynx, but I would go to Electronics Boutique in Stratford Square Mall and play their demo version.
Yep.
And there was a flying game was their main game at the time, right?
Blue Lightning.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was basically an
Atari,
Afterburner ripoff.
Yeah, but it was better because it was like 3D though,
No,
or whatever 3D
simulated, I guess. But yeah, the Lynx came out the same time as the original Game Boy, and it was way better technically. But Game Boy could run for 50 hours on a single.
You know what it was? People weren't buying it though because it said Atari. It's like, oh, Atari. What is this?
Well, they weren't buying it because the batteries were just insane. Whereas a Game Boy could.
I think Nintendo just owned that. Like they took everything by storm. That year or that stretch of like 86 to 90, it was all about Nintendo. So I don't remember I thought Lynx was cool, but I just had no interest in getting it.
The Nintendo was dominant. The Genesis made a dent, especially with the sports games like Madden.
Yeah.
Actually ran better on Genesis.
Madden games were huge then. Madden 93 was the one I played nonstop on Genesis. It was great. But yeah, I think for me it was all after. What about Mike Xtreme? After your toy era was over, what were your you could not wait to get for gifts?
Well, for me it was miniatures because we were playing. That was like D&D and things like that. And it wasn't like there were game stores everywhere, so we had to get them wherever we could. Where
were they sold at? Where would they find them?
One store, I forgot what it was called, but it was in the basement of Fox Valley Mall that we would get stuff, and we'd go every time we go to the mall, and we would go there, and it was just whatever he got, whatever weird, TSR module, whatever he, and Dungeon Dwellers and some Grenadier stuff. But he wasn't fancy. He didn't have Raw Parth or anything like that. So,
were you painting them too?
Oh yeah. And because I remember
like straight up testers on bare metal.
Oh yeah, it was testers, the oil-based stuff. So I had my little cup of turpentine that I was sucking up the fumes the whole time. And I remember I think back on this, and I'm actually amazed my dad was able to pull this off. It was in '81. He took my friend and I to the Dungeon, which was the game store in Lake Geneva. And we thought this was going to be this epic field trip that was going to have everything that could possibly be for D&D, which was 20 things back then.
It's built up in your imagination.
Oh my God!
Like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but
when we got there, it was all historicals, and it was literally two old fat guys. And I remember it was a house.
It was somebody lived
there? It was
there?
a converted house. And I actually wonder, because I actually did a little research on this, and one of the old fat guys might have been one of the TSR people, like Gary or Artisan or something like that. But they wanted nothing to do with us shitty little kids in their store, and they had nothing for D&D. They really had almost nothing for D&D.
Did they have like chainmail? Because that was the precursor, right? Chainmail?
Well, it wasn't. First edition was out, so and we had like the player's handbook and all that. But I remember I bought these minifigs. I got the pig-faced orcs and these. It was World of Greyhawk line, and they're made out of lead, straight lead. So you looked at them funny, and they bent. And I remember chewing off some of the because it was so soft.
The flash, yeah.
Yeah, the flash. I remember chewing it off, and I was like, oh, that's not safe. But we were so disappointed.
Weird way, what that reminds me of, it's obviously much later on, but before Games Workshop opened stores nationwide, they had the one in Maryland only.
Yeah.
That was it. So Dean tells me they're going to build one at Gurney Mills Mall. And it was actually a relatively new mall at the time. So we go up there, me, Dean, a couple other guys, and we thought it was going to be like, I don't know, there's tanks, or like, because you see the White Dwarf, and it was the lamest thing ever. It was a couple of fucking high back chairs, people painting, a bunch of stuff that just normal price that you can get at Gamer's Paradise, and hey, how's it going? Like, turn back around. Like,
not even what games you do.
Right. It wasn't until much later that they actually actively tried to sell. This was just we drove all the way up here. How disappointing that because we've been playing Warhammer for a couple of years at that point, and now it's like, okay, let's get the big. It's like going to a Gen Con. You expect a spectacle, and it was nothing.
It was nothing.
It was really small, really cramped, and it was
So
like
GW stores are now.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Look, we can just go to
The
Gamers
Pretty
Paradise.
Mill's place was a closet. It was so tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to go to the one in Randhurst. It was pretty small too.
Yeah. So it wasn't until the bunker that it actually, and then the bunker became a draw when they came with that.
Oh yeah.
It looked cool before they moved over, but it looked like a cool place to play.
I was a radical Crooked Hat Games loyalist, so I didn't go to the bunker very much.
I understand. You were
I was
loyal.
only at Crooked Hat Games once, and that was when they were closing. Because I was living in New Lenox back then, so Schaumburg was a long way away. And it was actually before Adepticon that I went there, and I was looking for War Master stuff because it's closing. I'm going to get a deal, you know. And it was probably either Todd or Howie told me to fuck off. And
probably Howie.
Yeah. Hey, guess what? Welcome. If you're first time here, we sell paintball now. Tell me what you want.
Todd would be friendly because Todd liked War Master.
You did.
Yeah.
But I was looking to get it for like 50% off,
Oh.
So for you, Mike, you were asking for miniatures at that time. And while Dean showed me Blood Bowl, it was more like he might get that for me, like a Blood Bowl team to play with. It wasn't, I have to get, I was still probably asking for video games. Xtreme, what was your like go-to gifts in that
post toy era?
So I don't know if I really had a post-toy era. It was more of a transition of now I have my own money so I could buy my own toys and make up for all those years of not having toys. But going back to the video game thing, like my dad had a 2600, so that was in the house, so we played that a little bit. But the only system we ever got for Christmas or at all growing up was an NES, and it was probably like 89. And I was so excited, but then like within a year, I realized it was the shittiest gift ever because we put it in the living room, and one of my parents
the main TV, and you couldn't play it.
Yeah. So one of my parents was always watching the TV. I had never played this stupid thing, and it just sat there and collected dust.
Did you not think? Did you have another TV in the house?
The other TV in the house was in my parents' bedroom, so it would have been the same thing. We couldn't go in there alone, so we would.
Why did they have weird shit in there that you weren't allowed to see?
I don't know.
That was the rule. I was not allowed in my parents' bedroom.
My parents moved our 2600 to the bedroom so we could play while they were watching TV.
Yeah, we never went in there. I don't even think we were really allowed.
No,
the door
we were
was
not
closed.
allowed at all.
I think the door was closed. It was
where the pleasure swing was.
Maybe I think the fucking it's like welcome. Like what the fuck?
Just like dildos everywhere.
I remember the great thing about having, especially older siblings, like we always had extra TVs in the house because whatever the good TV, the newest TV went.
You get the hand-me-down, yeah.
Right. We always I had like fucking open up the drawers. It was like a 20 incher in my room, and that was great, perfect for Nintendo.
I had a 2600 hooked up to my black and white TV.
Nice. Probably made it look better.
Yeah. Better contrast, yep.
My dad got me a TI 99 4A computer.
Nice.
And this was pre-Commodore era. And I actually got a color TV in my room because that was the monitor for the computer. And he had read all these magazines about this is the TV to get for, video resolution and all that. So I didn't have cable or anything, but
Our first cable came with a wired remote. No, our first cable was on TV.
Oh,
it was just a box with a switch on it.
Yeah.
And then late at night,
adults only.
Yep, AO. That was the best stuff.
We had this one. It was a big brown box. There was like a dial that went left to right on it. And but we had our VCRs was a remote on a cord.
A cord, yeah.
So you could pause between commercials when you're recording, but you'd always forget to unpause, so you would fuck up your recording.
It's funny because we were playing console games, we also had all these computers and computer games. And so we'd have a lot of the games we have for computer were on handwritten things and labels because my dad would get copies.
Pirated,
pirated games. And I remember, like, we had Commodore 64, then 128, then Amiga 1000, and Amiga
You
2000.
were rich back then if you had all that.
Yeah, it was great. But then I go to my friend's house. I'm like, what do you got? He's like, I got a Tandy. I'm like, all right. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that's Tandy. All I knew was Commodore.
Yep.
I go there. I'm like, what games you got? And it's a game I never heard of. It wasn't the Tandy's fault. They were all religious games. That's why I didn't know what they were. And I'm like, I'm playing. We hook up because we plugged in Atari joysticks.
Yep.
To the computer because they were the same 9-pin thing.
Yeah.
And I remember like, oh, my guy died. And on the screen, I remember it goes, your penance continues. And I'm like, what the? We didn't grow up religious at all. I'm like, do I have more guys or don't I? Like, is this over?
Don't worry, when you die, you go to heaven. It's fine.
So I'm like, fuck it. Give me the fake ass Mario Bros.
I want to play Bird vs. Magic.
You're right. Yeah, we had. You know what I had before that one? It was Dr. J and Larry Bird.
Yep.
That was a great game. But they were amazing games. And I later learned when I got Genesis that the processor in the Amiga 1000 was the same as the processor in the Genesis.
Motorola 68,000. It's a Motorola 68,000 series processor.
68,000. Yeah, it was. You were probably working there already at that time.
Well, and also that same processor, was put in the controller of the Atari Jaguar controller, had the same processor as the Sega Genesis.
Ah.
Just because it was a generic processor that everyone used.
I will tell you, I was probably a teenager at the time, I started to realize this is the point where the consoles will be better. For a long time, that was probably why we didn't have Nintendo right away. Computer games on Commodore and Amiga were always better than consoles. They just looked better, they played better.
And they were more complicated too. Like the role-playing games had way more depth.
Yeah.
And then after that,
gold box games of like what was it called? Baldur's Gate and Curse of the Azure Bonds, like those gold box.
I used to like Immortal was one of my favorites back then.
Immortal on Genesis was awesome. I beat it
because it was so bloody. You go up, you slice somebody in half.
Yep. It was rote memorization to get through the dungeon. Like you have to step here, then here, then here. And the battles were you were an old wizard and you dodge. And
they were
stick.
Yeah, they were weak battles because it was just like little dodge, but it was a 3/4 view.
Yep.
I thought that was kind of cool.
It looked amazing for the time, yeah.
Yeah, it was good shit. So anything from the modern day, like a very memorable gift that's worthy of discussion?
Sure. My wife.
She is the gift?
Yeah, we started dating on Christmas Day.
Huh.
Just like Jesus did. I don't know. I might be wrong about that. I'll have to check my notes.
Was he dating Mary then, or?
Did you met her before that, Brian, or did you just and then started dating on Christmas?
Yeah, we were friends before that.
Why did you decide Christmas to hook
get out of the friend? Were you in the friend zone and you had to work your way out, or
did you start with a lot of gifts?
There's a lot more drama than that, but no.
Okay. And that worked out okay.
Were you the town's moody bad boy and she didn't want anything to do with you until you straightened up your act like John Travolta in Grease and you joined track team and got a Letterman sweater?
Yeah, a lot like that. Almost exactly like that.
That's exactly what happened with that. So I remember this is probably when...
Wait, are you saying dating your wife was your best gift? Because that's schmaltzy and lame. What did she get you something cool?
There's another, like, my most memorable Christmas gift doesn't have the happy ending of my wife.
Indeed. When you started dating?
First date?
The first date?
When I was...
Is that how Alex came to be?
I think it was. Do the math.
An hour, 40 minutes in, she's tuned out, so yeah. I think Katie made 30 minutes once through one of these, so that's about it.
Was Taylor still involved in your gifts then as well? He was involved in your gift process early on. I don't know if that's still held true in the later gifts.
I don't know.
Taylor.
So when I was 10, I wanted a Upper Deck complete set, the 1990 set, because the 89 set came out and it was huge. It was this big groundbreaking set and it was worth all this money. Of course, now
Baseball cards we're talking for people that don't know.
Yes. So my grandma ended up getting me the full 1990 factory sealed set, and I kept it in shrink wrap for 10 years.
Wow.
Thinking that, this was going to go up in value. This was this awesome thing I never enjoyed. And I knew that baseball cards hadn't gone up in value at this point because I was close to 20. So I was like, all right, I was collecting cards the same time everybody else was. They're not worth it. But I didn't realize how little, like, retail on the box was like $75 in 1990. So I was like, if I can get $75 for it, all right, we'll consider it a wash. I left it shrink wrapped. I looked up the value on it and it was at $32 at that point. So I was like, fuck it. I ripped it open and went through all the cards.
Yeah. So that same time period, like 88, 89, 90, 91, like I started collecting with my dad and we started buying a lot of sealed boxes, keeping them sealed and, getting the Beckett's and, that became what we were into. And everybody did that.
Yep. It was like the comic books when everyone started buying multiple issue number ones. Yeah.
Because in 1990, stuff from 1980 was worth money. So the thought would be in 2000, this will be worth money. The difference was not everybody was collecting this stuff in 1980, whereas it was mass overproduced in 1990. Yeah. There was not just
there was rampant speculation. Yeah.
Fleer, Donruss, all these other companies, and everyone had everything. And
is that when they started doing gimmicks like foils and this has a sliver of home plate on it? And
later on, more of that. But I mean, for a while it was because everybody thought,
no, that was much later.
We're going to ride this out. We're going to ride because we're getting rookie cards. Like let me get a Barry Bonds rookie. He's going to be great. Ken Griffey Jr. And then they skyrocketed, but then all came back down. And even one of my most prized cards, the Bill Ripken card, where it says "fuckface" on the bat right here, which is awesome. To find, to get that in a pack as a kid, like, I got the fuckface, Mom! And that was at one time worth $150, $200. It's probably $1 now, if that. So I'm in the same boat as you, Xtreme. There was several times asked for cards and did not pan out.
I enjoyed that stuff at the time, though, so I don't think it like when I got into comics big, I would do like, oh, issue number 1, I'm going to collect it, but I still ended up reading it. I never kept anything fully mint.
Well, and that was the downside of this is that I didn't enjoy this gift because it just sat there in shrink wrap because it was
like if you were to open it at 10, you would have a lot more time fun with it. Yep.
Yeah, it wouldn't have the negative feelings towards it. I would open it at 10 and enjoyed it. But.
Yeah, I think the difference is, Biran, though, is with cards. I mean, I would collect them and try to complete a set, put them in books, order them, that kind of thing. But then they're done. I didn't really look at them much after I collected something. The thought was I did the work and now later it'll be worth money. And you get the magazines, you hope for that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, but it's disappointing later on. At least with comics, you might read them again. But I just,
I did for a while, like some, but they were never the valuable ones. It was just the regular in the line storylines that I would go back and reread, Yeah. Issue number 1s were gimmicky and stupid.
Well, a lot of my sports cards too. Like once I don't think I ever assembled a complete set, other than this one that was all assembled already. But when I had a lot of the same line or the same year, I would like make games and play games with them all the time too. So I'd get like hours and hours out of my baseball card.
You had a good imagination. Any other adult-oriented gifts, if I can say it like that?
It's pretty hard because either A, you buy whatever you want anyway.
Right.
Or if someone's getting you something, you tell them exactly what you want and they give it for you.
Right.
Or you buy it yourself.
And then say, you bought me this.
Else to give to them.
What I actually like, people don't like when their birthday is close to Christmas because they think they're going to get cheaped out. But I always like to say, you could get me this and it counts for both, so I can up the value.
A bigger gift, yeah.
Like I did that just this year with Vanessa. She got me the Iron Man action figure I wanted. It's too much for a birthday gift, but when you combine it with a Christmas gift, it fits.
I think trying to run a radio station too. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're right about all that. There is one on the adult side. So before Heather and I got married, she got me a Force FX saber when it first came out. But I think she wanted it to be, I don't know if there was an address mix-up, and it went to, my house, my mom's house, and my sister just moved back in there. She calls me up and said, I think I'm at work or something, and hey, your lightsaber came in, and it's supposed to be, but I think it was I think maybe Heather told my mom it's coming or whatever it was.
She wanted it to be a surprise. Yeah.
Spoiled the surprise, and it sucked, but I'm still happy I got it.
Yeah.
Fun fact, the hilt of that one, it's real sticky now. And not from cum, as you would think, but because it was rubber on it, it did a similar kind of thing. Yeah. And I've tried to goo on it and everything, and I don't know what happened. The other ones don't do that, but it was a great gift. But I hate when things. And this was, in the internet age, gifts can get spoiled too. You see things you're not supposed to see. Like you share an Amazon account. Yeah. So for Amazon, I said I'm deleting it off my phone. You do what you want with it. I won't see any of it, and I'll get my stuff from other sources. I just think that it's you have to try extra hard now to be secret about gifts. Yep, it's tough. Credit cards, and where you go. It's at the point where it's more fun, where I like not telling people what I want just to see what I get. Just don't spend a lot, but just have at it. Like me, get something cool. Yep. Christmas was more fun when you weren't expected to get anyone anything in return for all the gifts you got. Yeah, it's best to quote the Tim and Eric Crimbus special. What am I going to get? It's a holiday about receiving only. Mm-hmm. And there's start adding up wait a second, I spent more on gifts giving to people than I received. This sucks. Right. And you should keep track of that. I know, Biran, you were mentioning about, all right. What's the MSRP on this? I have to get them at least this much. Okay. Next year, you're only worth 25. Yep. Okay. Market trends.
My ex-wife's family, after the gift was given, there was a discussion about how much the gift cost. But for them, it was, if you paid full price, you're a fool. It was the best gift was, this is $30, but I paid $8 for it. And the less you paid for it, the better the gift was. It was the weirdest. And telling the recipient how much you paid as part of the. Oh God, yeah. It was after every gift was opened individually, and then there was discussion about how little you paid for it.
So they would say no gift receipt, just the straight receipt.
Or sometimes they would actually have the receipt as proof.
Yep.
Or they would actually have that with it, and they'd show it to them to show how little they paid for it.
Normally the tradition is you pull the price tag off. So leave it on. Be like, it says 50.
I didn't pay that.
Got it for 12.
I'd be like, then why didn't you give me a couple more things to add up to 50?
Right, exactly.
I spent 50.
Right. Oh man.
For also my cousin, because we've always done Christmas Eve as our main gift giving, but now it's only my aunt and uncle and my cousins that live locally, so we go over there, and my cousins are now too old where I feel obligated to give them something other than just money. So that's always a challenge.
Because money's weird for adults.
Yeah. I gave my brother and sister-in-law money because he just had hip surgery and needs money, so that seemed appropriate.
Why don't you offer him your hip?
I think the cyber hip he got is better than my hip.
There's no doubt it's better.
Yeah.
I would take the price tag off first, though.
But this is a pro tip for any gift giving. If you're giving a gift to someone, it works better for women. You don't know what to get them. Vera Bradley throw blankets. Chicks love blankets, and they love Vera Bradley shit, and they're like $50. Perfect.
There you go. So to any guys or dudes, as Biran, dudes and chicks, as Biran talks,
right?
Dudes watching what to get for your chick. If you want to get laid,
you only want to spend $50 to do it.
Vera Bradley. Tell them, it's worth 50.
How many people are getting stupid decorated masks as like stocking stuffers this year?
Oh, Mask. Yeah.
Right, that's it. So now we have Mask the movie, Mask the toy, and cartoon.
And then Mask the...
I went to Luchador first, and I was like, what? And I was like,
oh, Luchador. That's how you know you're watching a lot of wrestling.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get any masks. I bought the ones I have, and that's the ones I have. So.
I still have that Rage Against the Machine one, even though it makes people ask me questions about the band that I don't even like. Oh, man, I saw them live. I'm like, I don't like Rage Against the Machine.
That's in the Book of Biran.
Yeah.
That's in one of your, like...
That's one of my things.
Points. Yeah, there's that. Lena Dunham. There's a whole list. We'll have an episode about when we have your appreciation.
That'd be a good trivia.
Yeah.
Well, when we have
Biran lore?
episode, when you're not on it, Biran, I'm going to list all of the rules.
That's going to be a long episode.
It'll be long, but I think I got them all.
I have strong opinions on dumb things.
You do.
Nothing wrong with that. Well, anything else, or should we wrap it up?
I think we didn't really stay on topic.
Yeah. A couple of times I tried to bring it back to gifts.
Yep.
But, it's easy to start talking about, miniatures or games or whatever. So.
Oh, also a big shout out to Anthony Sarlo. We aren't talking about you slamming dice. He commented that. He's one of the few people who listens all the way through, and he says, "All you guys talk about is how I slam dice."
He's a great beard.
His COVID beard.
His COVID beard was great.
Yeah. Did you get any picks?
No, I didn't even think of it.
Can I sneak this? And I was like, I don't know. What?
Is it in the bathroom?
No.
Okay. If you do a meetup of the group, Biran, you've got the info. You can go live on YouTube.
Yeah.
And if anybody watching this wants to be notified, you ring the bell, and then it's like, oh, Zlurpcast TV is live. Biran will do questions and answers, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would love.
I would even pretend there's people asking questions and just answers.
Well, yeah, it's going to say like 0 watchers, and you're like, we got a question from Tom in Tallahassee. He wants to know. It's like, no, It says 0. There's no one watching.
It's on their end.
Right. All right. Well, we'll be back with another new episode talking about a game, reviewing a game. If you liked our last contest, stay tuned. We'll have more of those. Somebody is winning Xtreme's Dracula's America book because they knew the rankings of some old episodes. I love that. So a way to win stuff. You can do that here on Zlurpcast. If you want to buy stuff, you don't want to win it, totally fine too. Zlurpcast.net. Get yourself a shirt with that logo on there. Biran ordered one today.
I did.
I ordered one today. And by the way, I do own that image. Lest anyone think Scott Prime has any ownership over it, he was paid handsomely for his work, and the contract says I own all of it. What goes along with ownership? A lot of debt and despair.
A lot of people have been asking.
A lot of people have been asking. So you buy that shirt, 100% of the proceeds goes to the show to pay for Biran's, hosting or Zoom fees, to pay for Xtreme to mail out prizes. There's no profit to be made, nor should there be.
Media mail is the key, right?
Yeah. Because media mail, but then when Xtreme says, "Can I get some money from the pot?" It's like the Mike Present thing. Mm-hmm. Here you go, Xtreme. Here's $10 to mail out your prize. He's like, it only cost me $3 media mail, and he's gonna pocket the $7. He's got
a kid in college. He needs the money.
Yeah. He's got fake receipts. It all checks out. I'm not worried about it. Follow Zlurpcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Zlurpcast. Zlurpcast discussion on there. Join the Zlurp Nation. That's where you hear about cool contests, other extra content. Maybe there'll be extra videos in 2021. Maybe not. That's on Biran's ass. It's up to him.
I need to do better. I need to
do better on that. There's a link inside the description to sign up to that. We are at about 500 members in that group. And you might say, wow, that's a lot. Yeah, because it started at 600.
We've only lost 100. That's good.
We've only lost. We gained a bunch when it was all Blood Bowl years ago.
Yeah.
And then when I started peddling Death Path, we lost some. And then when this thing started, we lost some. But big thanks to that, 496 who have stuck it out. By the way, don't think we don't know who hit unsubscribe. It gives me a list. If your name's on that list, I'll always know you as an unsubscriber. Pay no mind list.
So a special shout out to the ones I personally know that watch: Anthony Sarlo, Spencer Stevens, the best Spencer, and Tony also listens all the way through.
Those are all your boys.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you think, do they listen for content or to hear their name?
I always listen to hear my name before I join, so probably. But
Because
they're all getting shout outs in this one. They got to stay.
When you mentioned Anthony, you know, he's like, you guys talk about dice. I mean, there was other episodes we talked about him, but you know, sometimes we talk about our gaming experiences and things that happen in games, people aren't always portrayed in the best light. You know, if Xtreme gets mad in a Blood Bowl game and flips the table, we talk about it. He's like, hey, why'd you trash me? It's like, well, it happened, we talk about it. So
if we didn't like you, we wouldn't mention you at all. Just think of it that way.
Yeah, it's better to have played and been an asshole than to never have played at all.
Yeah, if I don't remember who you are, then you didn't make an impression.
Right. Would you rather be remarkable asshole or completely unremarkable? You want to be remarked upon, even as an asshole. So that's what you get on Zlurpcast. Any other parting words? All right. Say your goodbyes.
Zlurpcast! Brought to you by Nuffles. Bet you can't just roll a one.